The confirmation came during a news conference that we streamed live at fox17online.com. The suspect, who has been identified as John Douglas White, has been arraigned on charges of open murder and first-degree homicide. Tonight, we have also learned that he is a pastor with Christ Community Fellowship in Mount Pleasant. Police are investigating several locations in this case, including Rebecca's home where the crime happened and a ditch a mile away where her body was found. Fox 17's Courtney Perna has been working this story all day. She is live in Mount Pleasant tonight with the latest. Courtney. Christian, after looking into his history, we've found that John White is no stranger to the Michigan Department of Corrections. Here's a look at some of his criminal past. In 1981, White was found guilty of felony assault with intent to murder. That case was out of Battle Creek. He was sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison, but only served 2 years. Then in 1994, White was charged with open murder for killing a co-worker in Kalamazoo. According to MLive's Kalamazoo Gazette, Vicky Wall was strangled. He spent nearly a year in jail awaiting trial and underwent multiple screenings to see if he was competent to stand trial. Eventually, he pleaded no contest to manslaughter, was given an 8 to 15 year sentence. He was convicted of a lesser charge because the body was so badly decomposed. Records show White was released from prison in February of 2007. As you see, it's not a long rap sheet, but it did have 2 serious crimes on it, crimes that fit with what police say happened in Mount Pleasant. We will stay on this story and have much more online and on Fox 17 News at 10. Live in the newsroom, Tim Doty, Fox 17 News. A messy and probably pretty smelly scene in Walker this afternoon as an overturned semi-truck spilled 5,000 gallons of sewage onto the road. It happened at Lake Michigan Drive and Wilson a little after noon today. A biotech agronomics truck was carrying about 8,500 pounds of sludge to a farm when the weight of the payload caused the truck to tip over while it was taking a corner. According to crews on the scene of the accident, about 5,000 gallons of the sludge spilled out, with a portion of that running into a sewer that drains into a nearby creek. Walker Fire dammed the pipe and placed booms in the creek to try and contain that sludge. All southbound lanes of Wilson were closed as the mess was cleaned up. And another semi-rollover happened today, this one on M6 in Kent County, and it was a truck full of cattle. Happened around 6 a.m. A number of cows actually got loose on the road, but were eventually corralled and retrieved. The driver of the semi not hurt. No word yet on what caused the accident.
We didn't remember Chris Richardson too much.
I'm glad we can both admit that, because I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. When I saw him, I vaguely remembered, but I couldn't tell you anything that he sang.
No, and what style he was or anything. But you know, you have to remember the top 10, and it's such a big deal while it's going on, but over 12 years, that's 100 people out there, you know, that kind of, most of them are forgotten, and yet I think it's so great. A lot of them really are pursuing their music careers. They're just not superstars.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Please tell me.
The Scotty McCreery Christmas album. Every single Christmas carol starts with "Baby Lock Them Doors and Turn," and then he goes into the actual Christmas carol.
I can't wait. Please give it to me early, because I was just saying today there's not enough.
You can play it for the newsroom.
I can't wait.
More news coming up next. Police in Kalamazoo Township are asking for help locating a man who hasn't been seen for 4 days. Family members say they haven't seen James Williams Baldwin since last Friday. The 39-year-old is said to be off his medication and could be disoriented or confused. They say he doesn't have a wallet or any ID on him either. No foul play is suspected in the disappearance. If you have any information, call Kalamazoo Township Police at 269-343-0551. With the World Series behind him, a lot of people are asking what is next for the Tigers. Well, we checked in with a national baseball writer and asked that same question, what he says the team needs to do now. Tara, Rick gave the forecast for MSU Nebraska tomorrow. Do you remember the last time they played in Spartan Stadium?
I do not.
1995. It was Nick Saban's first game as MSU head coach. 50-10 was the final.
Ooh, which way?
And I remember I was working in Lansing. Nick Saban's famous quote, he comes in after his first game as MSU head coach, looks at the media and says, "Frankly, guys, I think our team quit."
Nice accent.
Yeah.
Doing a little southern
I covered
there.
Nick for a lot of years. As a media member, when you hear the coach after his first game say his team quit, you're like, oh, this could be an interesting time period.
And it was an interesting Nick
Spartan fans hope it'll be 50-10 the other way tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot.
A West Michigan woman pregnant with her 3rd child says she was savagely beaten at her home, and she says the unborn baby's father is the one responsible. Fox 17's Mitch Fick joins us in studio with more on this story. As we have been talking about all hour long, Hurricane Sandy continuing to wreak havoc on the East Coast, even right here in our way.
Right, so far that storm has been blamed for more than a dozen deaths in the U.S. and is responsible for thousands of power outages. Here's a look now at some of the aftermath of Sandy. Lots of flooding in New York. On Staten Island, a large tanker ship washed ashore after massive waves pushed it out of the water.
Here's a look at what the storm did in Maryland. This is what's left of a home in Pasadena where a man was killed by a falling tree. The victim, we are told, is a retired engineer.
And aside from flooding, Sandy's also responsible for nearly 3 feet of snow in West Virginia. The blizzard toppled trees, knocked out power. And look at that, just covered the area. A state of emergency has now been declared in more than a dozen counties there. Fox 17 meteorologist Rick Mecklenburg has been following the storm, of course.
Just days after Chrysler announced an 80% increase in profits, General Motors and Ford announced they didn't do quite as well in the third quarter. GM says earnings at home were down, but it was record losses in Europe that were most responsible for their 17% decline in profits. General Motors still made $1.8 billion thanks to strong sales internationally. They say they sold more cars and trucks in China than here in the U.S. Ford, meanwhile, took huge losses in Europe, but did much better than expected here and in China. The company posted a profit of $1.63 billion. That's a record amount for Ford in the third quarter and down only slightly from a year earlier. If you're the parent of a Grand Rapids Public Schools student, you are invited to a meeting tomorrow to learn about the big changes that are proposed for the district. Those proposals were introduced at a special meeting on Monday and would be implemented over time. One of the biggest proposed changes is closing down Creston High School, which has seen declining enrollment over the years, while reopening Stocking Elementary. Tomorrow, a meeting will be held with parents in the district to discuss the plans. That'll take place at Creston High School, starts at 6 p.m. If you would like to see the full list of possible changes coming to GRPS, go to fox17online.com. Well, when it comes to fire response, every second counts.
And each fire comes with its own unique set of challenges, including how old the structure is.